Mercedes has finally unveiled the new E-Class, and there is a lot to talk about here when it comes not just to the design, but more so I would say when it comes to the technology of this new E-Class. So let's jump straight in to this article from Motor One. I'm gonna link this down in the description if you want to go and check it out. Let's see what's actually new for the Mercedes E-Class. So for North America, Mercedes offers two trim levels at launch. You have the E350 and E450. Size-wise, it's just under 1 inch longer with a half-inch longer wheelbase, and both trims are available with the 4MATIC all-wheel drive powertrain, and they both use the upgraded 9-speed automatic transmission. Now, when we come into the technology of this new E-Class, I don't know what to think about this. If it's creepy, if it's useful, or where we're headed when it comes to all this technology that they're pumping into new cars today. So we have the Super Screen, and that's in full effect here. Same thing that you have in the EQE, for example, featuring a standalone driver display with a broad screen blending into the center display. We're going to talk more about this interior because I think this is actually a much better integration than we have in the EQE. I'm going to let you know why when we get to that section. You can also option for a passenger screen so that they have something to look at as well. And this screen is designed to allow passengers full view while blocking it from the driver, ensuring there's no added distractions while traveling, as if all these cameras and screens that you already have for the driver isn't distracting enough. So you have up to 5 cameras for the new E-Class interior. You can read more about that right here in this article. Mercedes says it can be used for Zoom meetings while on the road. So these days, you don't just go into a car to go for a nice drive. You go into it and have it be part of your office as well. I guess that's what we're going for here. There's also an optional 3D driver display that employs a stereoscopic effect. You also have active ambient lighting feature that allows the soft interior LED to kind of pump in sync with the music. Some crazy stuff. Mercedes says that the new E-Class is more about software than hardware, and that to me sounds a little sad. Buyers can have entertainment apps like the game Angry Birds, video conferencing apps, and the video platform TikTok is included when you need to see a funny video or upload something wild to your followers. And it also uses advanced AI systems that will learn driver routes over time and automatically implement them. This is where it becomes a little bit edgy, maybe a little creepy as well. And you also have this selfie camera that is always active on the interior. So that's just part of the new technologies that come with the new E-Class. Let's have a look at what's going on the exterior, which is what I'm more interested in. EQ influence at the front, you can clearly see that right here with the gloss black panel connecting standard LED headlights. The LED taillights contain 3 pointed star elements, which when I first saw this, the first second I saw this image, I'm going to talk more about that when we get to the rear view, exactly what I think about this rear end specifically. The wheel sizes ranges from 18 to 21 inches, which is great. Mercedes still have very nice looking wheels from factory for pretty much all of their lineup. When it comes to the power, the E350 still has a turbocharged 2-liter 4-cylinder, making 255 horsepower and 295 torques. And the E450 turbo is an inline 6 with a mild hybrid system, and that significantly bumps up the power to 375 horsepower and 369 pound-feet of torque. There's no pricing info yet, and we don't know when the new E-Class will go on sale yet, but it should be maybe end of the year or something like that. So let's jump into Photoshop here and let's have a look at this design and what's going on with the new E-Class. To me, it's I wasn't sure if this was a subtle facelift or it was a brand new model, but it is in fact a brand new 2024 model down here. And in the front view, I actually like what they did here because I wasn't a huge fan of the previous generation. My favorite is I think the one that came out in 2016, I believe, the AMG version of that, the E63, just looks really good with the smiling grille and not the frowning one. But here you can see we have the smiling grille back in the E-Class, and I absolutely love that because it gives it more of an elegant look and not this angry, aggressive look that I don't really think suits Mercedes. This is perfect, and I also like that they extended the grille, looking at it from the previous generation, how thin this grille is. It's too thin for me. Now they made it a little taller, and it creates a much more Mercedes-like front end to have this grille be the prominent feature in the front end. The one thing that I'm not so so sure about are these new headlights that we have here. Not so sure about these squiggly lines at the bottom and how this kind of follows this squiggly outline. It looks a little strange to me, maybe like a modernization of the 2001 or earlier 1997 E-Class in a modern take where you had the two separated headlights rounded like this. This feels like almost like a modern version of that, going back to this two separated elements in the front end. But another detail that I definitely like that they brought back for this E-Class is if you look at the hood, in the previous generation it's very subtle, pretty elegant looking hood, but something is missing here in the middle. And I really like that they brought back these two ribs that we have sticking out in the hood, even on the non-AMG Mercedes E-Classes, because I think this has over time, ever since the first generation SLK, this feature in the hood has become part of the Mercedes DNA, and it doesn't, for me at least, ruin the elegance of the Mercedes brands, even though this is not an AMG version. Lower part looks also very clean. I like that they cleaned up the lower part right here with this intake, which still has the same kind of outlines as we're used to seeing in Mercedes, and it was pretty simple in the previous one as well, but they had these added chrome or trim pieces going around it here, which they don't really have on the new one. You do have some trim piece right here in the middle, but the outline of it is a lot cleaner than it was right here. Overall, the front end is a huge improvement in my opinion. I can't wait to see what the E63 will look like, even though it's probably gonna have a 4-cylinder, but when it comes to the design of the new E-Class AMG, I'm really excited to see what they're gonna do to make this front end even sportier. So let's have a look at the side and see what's going on here. So this is also an upgrade that I really like that Mercedes did, and it's very subtle. So if you just look at the greenhouse between these two, you can barely see any differences whatsoever in this section right here, comparing it to the new E-Class down here. But the key change that I love about this new E-Class is the shoulder line. They really sharpened up the shoulder. You can see that in the previous one, it goes from going high in the front and then dips, slopes down here into the taillight. But in the new one, it sits a lot higher in the rear and creates this strong muscle line over the rear axle, and then kind of fades in the middle right here and coming back strong again in the front end. It's a very beautiful design for a shoulder line for Mercedes, and I do prefer this over the more sloping line that we have in the previous one. You can also see the wheels here. The old wheels look absolutely fantastic, and so does the new wheels. I'm not usually a fan of black wheels, but I think in combination with this color, it kind of works with the outline that we have, the silver outline of the wheels as well. The lower half of the side view looks very, very similar to the old one, with the same line going down here, as you can see, into the bumper. One detail that I would like to change overall on this E-Class is this new design that we have, or it's been around for maybe 5 or 6 years now for Mercedes, and it's this angle in the rear end. So I'm not so sure about this angle right here, that it's tilting forward so much. So what I would like to do is just to angle it back just a couple of inches, maybe push the diffuser and the bumper in a little bit and have it be something like this. So a couple of small changes to the rear end. Gonna go back and forth here so you can see exactly what's going on to create some more definition and structure in specifically the rear end. This rear end might work for a C-Class or an CLA, for example, when you have the smaller Mercedes. When you're growing into the E and S-Class, I'd rather have a lot more structure in the rear. But other than that, still a very beautiful touch by Mercedes when it comes to updating this side view. So let's have a look at the rear before we have a look at the interior as well. There's a lot going on there. So we have a brand new taillight design, as you can see, for the new Mercedes E-Class. The outline looked very similar to what we had before, but they also added this waviness that we have in the front end to the rear, as you can see right here. Look at the outline of this taillight. We have these double waves going on, and then we have these Mercedes star pattern inside of these taillights. When I first saw this, the first second I thought that these taillights, they look great if we separate two different things. If we separate the graphic features that are internally inside of the assembly, and if we separate that from the outline of the taillight itself. If we put them together like we have here, they don't work well together, because these patterns that we have inside here, they have no connection to the outline of the taillight itself. You see these curvatures here, there's no connection with the internal pieces of the taillight, which really clashes when I see this. So how I would like to fix this is to either change the outline of the assembly itself, which would be pretty difficult in this situation because the internal pieces are so complex, so I don't know how they would do that, or just simply change what's going on inside to have it some LEDs that kind of follows the outlines of the taillight itself and have them be connected in a better way. I definitely prefer the taillights of the previous generation, but again, I still prefer the 2016 over both of these because I think that was a more substantial and solid looking E-Class than what we have in these two. Looking at the bottom part of the diffuser, we also have a couple of changes going on here. I'm not sure if these are supposed to be the same kind of trim, but here in the old one, it looks pretty nice. We have a subtle diffuser in the middle with a couple of wings here and these typical Mercedes tailpipes. In the new one, they completely hid the tailpipes. These are fake tailpipes, not a fan of that at all. You can either have proper tailpipes or just not make them at all like this to try to fool everyone that these are actually tailpipes when they're not. And in that regard, I think the E63 is going to look a lot better, specifically in the rear when they implement a proper diffuser with hopefully the quad tailpipes in the rear. You also have this chrome trim piece going above the tail lamps all the way to the very corner of it now, instead of ending at this point like it does right here on the previous generation. So let's jump in to the interior. So let's have a look what's going on here. So you can have this new interior in two different modes. You have the sport mode and you have something called classic. And the sport mode comes with a lot of red angry lights inside, and I think it looks really cool. Actually, this has to be, I think, the first time I actually prefer an updated interior in a very long time compared to the previous generation. I think this integration, yes, we have a bunch of screens. The whole dash is a full screen. But if we're gonna have screens like this, I'd rather have it be like we have in the new one instead of having this big iPad that we have on the dash on the previous generation. Steering wheels still look, Mercedes still does one of the best looking steering wheels coming out of the factory, and it looks fantastic. You see all this ambient lighting that we have going all around the interior, and the thing is, I think this is a lot better integrated than the EQE for one simple reason is that we have more structured lines. So you see these angles are more defined, and it's not so smooth and organic like it looks in the EQE. And I think that goes for the outside as well. We have a very close resemblance to the EQE, but since this is an internal combustion engine, you need to have details that stick out from the surface of the car and not just have it be a smooth surface going all the way down like the EQE is. And that's why the exterior works better for me, even though it still has a lot of resemblance to the EQE, and same thing with the interior. It just feels higher quality interior when you have more defined lines, and you also have this outline going all around this, creating a nice vent slot. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like we have any physical buttons at all for the climate control and so on. I'm not sure what these buttons are. This looks maybe like a camera button, some volumes right here. But that's it. Everything happens in the infotainment screen, so you're gonna have to look down and you can't feel your way to what it is you want to adjust when you're driving, for example, on the highway. This is the optional screen for the passenger, which I said could only be viewed from the passenger side. The driver right here can't see what's going on here because they don't want to distract him too much, which I think is funny. So overall, this new Mercedes E-Class, I am a fan of what they're trying to do here. They're trying to get the EQ design into their internal combustion design. I'm not a fan of the EQ designs at all. I don't like how they look. I don't like the proportions. I don't like the lack of details on the exterior. But here, all of that has kind of been fixed while still having the same graphic features, specifically in the front end. There is some interesting design elements going on, specifically those curvatures that we have in the front lights and the tail lights. But overall, when you look at the line flow of this new E-Class, the size of the grille, the shoulder line, I think it's a really cool upgrade from the previous generation.